Hey, what's up, everybody? Coach Ben here from Turnfit Online Personal Training. I am here with one of our super successful recent graduates of our 12-week Bikini Body Challenge, Kristin Booth. Kristin has been pretty successful with our program. She's said nothing but amazing things about it. You even had time where you were sick. Is that right, Kristin? Times where you're sick and getting back on the program and, really developing a healthy lifestyle and being able to do those kinds of things. And it's been, look at you now. You look vibrant. You look gorgeous. You're looking great today, which is fabulous. Nice to see you. You're a person that always asks a lot of questions, and I love it. And we're here actually today to answer some questions. And we want to get out there to people. We're going to answer the question of what is online training. I'm realizing that online training is something that people don't know about that much. It's still new. It's out there. So there's a lot of questions that come up for people. And so today, hopefully with Kristin, we're here to answer what is online training and why it can be so successful for you. So I've done a little brief intro, but Kristin probably do a better job for me than that. So Kristin, why don't you tell everybody who you are and what's going on with you?
I'm Kristin Booth. I'm an actress located in Toronto, and I've been working with Ben and the online training program since July. And I can't ever see not being it being a part of my life after that. It's been an incredible experience for me. I've seen great successes, and sorry, I'll turn that off. The thing that I took out of this, the biggest thing that I took out of the program was that that this is a lifestyle, not just 12 weeks of my life. And that now that I've sort of started off with the first 12 weeks, I can continue on, and it doesn't have to be quite as intense, but because I've already got the results that I wanted. Now it's just maintaining and being healthy and living vibrantly, which is, it's pretty cool having energy again.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Yeah. And I love what you're saying there. It's more about building a lifestyle and building a healthy habit than really the results, right? Because if you flip this around, those results start to come. And I think that's something that you did through asking a ton of questions and always being a part of the process, not just letting us guide you, but always being a part of the process, and that you asked those questions, the important questions, and did that stuff as you went along.
Well, and that's one of the things that I loved about the aspect of online training, is that I could ask a question whenever I needed the answer, and most of the time I would get it within an hour. I would get the answer, and that's incredible to have that resource right there when you need it. And that's something I've never experienced with past programs, and it was a really key to the success of the program, for sure.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So let's get into the big question here. We're looking at, before you started the program, and before we started talking about getting you into the program, or when you came across us, what did you think online training was?
To be honest, I had no idea. I had never heard of online training. I had no idea what to expect. And then when I did speak to you, you said there was an app, and I was like, okay, that whatever. I don't get that either. Like, an app's going to train me. I don't get this. So I honestly really didn't have any clue. And what blew me away about the program and the aspect of online training is that if it honestly felt like you were in the room with me the whole time, or a trainer, because a lot of the videos, the instructional videos for the exercises that you go through, when I first started the program, I watched them quite intently and religiously, but the great thing was, within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I was like, I know all these exercises now. I don't have to watch the instructional video. And then that would hasten the process too, which would make my workouts faster, and I felt more competent. But the great thing, as I said before, was if I had a question about anything, like, am I doing this properly, or am I going to jeopardize my knees or any of my joints or anything like that, I could ask you right away and I would get an answer. And that was pretty special and unique.
Awesome. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the kind of environment that we want to create, right? We want to really have, the idea is that you don't have to meet somebody somewhere for a particular appointment. You have the flexibility to be able to do it where you want, know what the form looks like, and be able to ask the questions when you need to ask the questions and get a response right away, just like you were meeting somebody, but it's more on your time schedule, right? And that's
Yeah, and as an actress, as a working mom, that was paramount to the being able to sustain it and keep going on it, because I can be on a plane next week and headed to Hungary for all I know, like to shoot something.
that would be
And
awesome.
it would be awesome. It's actually a possibility. Fingers crossed. But anyway, that's the thing, right? It allows for the flexibility for my chaotic and hectic lifestyle, and I don't have to, at noon have to be at a gym and be like with my trainer, and if I'm not, if I have to cancel at the last minute, which often happens because of jobs coming in or a kid gets sick or whatever, I'm not paying $80, $90 because I missed an appointment without 24 hours notice. So the flexibility that online training offered me was incredible, really, truly incredible. And I think is a huge reason why I was able to stick to it and have the success that I did.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. And so speaking of like the success that you had, can you sort of walk us through the changes that you noticed physically, mentally, maybe even spiritually a little bit around some of the things that you noticed that changed for you as you went through the 12-week process?
Sure. I mean, physically, I certainly noticed a difference in the way my body looked within 3 to 4 weeks. I was already, I could tell like my pants and stuff and my clothes were all fitting more loosely. I was seeing more muscle definition and less fat. I felt it was crazy how, because I'm 44, and even in my 20s, I had never seen fat fall off my body the way it did with this program, and that was pretty exciting for me because that's always sort of been my biggest challenge. Is like certain areas of my body always held on to this extra fat, and it wouldn't necessarily be noticeable to somebody when I'm walking down the street in my clothes, but it was noticeable to me, and noticeable when I was wearing a bikini or what have you. And so that was a huge, almost immediate result that I noticed physically. But on top of that, my energy levels were skyrocketing. Like I was feeling like I could get through so much more in my day and accomplish so much more because I wasn't feeling that 2 to 4 p.m. dragging my feet and trying to keep my eyes open. Like I actually was like, oh, I feel really good. I feel energized. And I think part of that was the exercise and the cardio, but I also think that part of it was the nutritional plan because I was eating every 2 hours. And I think that made a huge difference because before the program, I would go 4 hours without eating. And I also suffer from hypoglycemia. So that's a serious drop in blood sugar when you don't eat, for anybody who doesn't know. And it can cause massive fatigue and irritability. And sometimes people can even pass out, get lightheaded, that kind of stuff. And this nutritional plan has completely eliminated those issues from my life. And I'm never hungry. I eat every 2 hours, and it's all, really clean and lean proteins. And it's really made a difference in my energy levels and my ability to get through my day and accomplish more.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And that's really it. And a lot of people, what happens with a lot of people when they go on certain plans or things like that is that you're after a certain result, right? And a lot of times when people are after a certain result, that's the biggest pitfall that people fall into, is that they start doing workout programs that aren't designed specifically for their body, that aren't tailored custom to them. And they either hurt themselves, they burn out and get injured. They do all that kind of get injured, and they leave the gym, and the consistency just isn't there. And then same thing with the food plan, is that a lot of people are they're eating way too little, because everybody hears, there's a lot of conflicting information out there, and everybody hears that, to lose fat and to all that kind of stuff, you need to eat less calories in a day, which is true to a degree. There needs to be a deficit, but you need to eat the right combination of calories, macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates specific to your body, and eat enough of those nutrients to keep the other hormones in your body firing that keep your metabolism going. So oftentimes people that eat these really low calorie deficit diet plans and nutrition plans, they just crash their metabolism into the ground, slow it to a halt. So it's not doing anything. So even though they're eating less calories, they're still packing on fat onto their body. And that's the thing, is that I find often is that when we get people into these programs, they're blown away by how much food they actually have to eat.
Oh, I remember the first couple of weeks, I was like, oh, I can't eat. I was like, I don't want to eat, but I'm supposed to. But then you realize once you get on the program and the exercise, you need that energy. Your body starts telling you every 2 hours, hey, you need to feed me. I'm hungry. Like, whereas before it was like force feeding.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting, what's the word I'm looking for? It was a very interesting transfer of the way I used to think about exercise and nutrition. And it's very true about how we're all sort of fed this idea through media, through fad diets, and that, like, oh, well, if you eat less, you're going to achieve the results that you want. And that was what was so great about this program, is that I was actually eating more than I'd ever eaten before in a day. And I was losing fat, losing inches, and I was feeling energetic and feeling really healthy. And the thing that's so great about it is that now, going forward, my body's so used to it. My body tells me now every 2 hours, even if I forget, right? It's like, oh, hey, you need to eat, you're hungry. And it's like I've retrained my whole system. And it's all connected. So it's been a pretty incredible experience for me. And that's why I've been so enthusiastic about it on social media and stuff, because it really has impacted my life in such a positive way. I feel so much better and so much more energized and capable and strong. And that's isn't that what everybody wants? I would think,
Yeah, I hope so. I think our mission is always to like get people to kick the scale out of the house and work on.
I don't weigh myself.
Yeah, perfect. So, and that was something that blew me away about you too, which was, I was like, oh, you don't fall into that pitfall around that kind of stuff. And I was really excited to work with you on that, because it was more about what we actually want to tackle. We want to tackle that holistic person. We want to get to flipping the mindset around how you eat, how you approach exercise, how you do that kind of stuff, make it accessible. And then that way you can have success like right out of the gate, day one kind of thing, right? And that's what we're after, is just having these mini successful moments throughout, and then teaching you how to continue it and sustain it and make it sustainable, right? Like working in like how do you cheat properly, how you go away and travel if your food's not accessible to you, the food that you would normally prep is not accessible to you, and doing that kind of stuff, right? So that's where we're at with that stuff. And I know that was a big thing that was important to you as well too, when we went.
Well, and you asked about how it's affected me sort of spiritually as well, and it really has. It's sort of been this trifecta for me, because I suffered from eating disorders when I was younger, and part of me was a little bit hesitant to even start any type of program, because I didn't want to get into that mindset that I had been in before of, denying myself things or cutting back on things, that kind of thing, worrying about, numbers on scales and that kind of stuff. And that was that was one of my first impressions of you, was when you said, what do you weigh? And I said, I have no idea. I don't weigh myself. And you were like, great, that's awesome. And that was not what I was expecting to hear from a personal trainer. It's like, well, could you find a scale and let me know so I can put this in? And it wasn't that at all. You were like, awesome. Yeah. That doesn't matter. And so that was so encouraging to me. And then, what ended up happening with me in the workouts and the exercises, that I actually found them to become very meditative, very, they made me maybe hone in and focus for an hour and 15, hour and a half, whatever it was in the day, where I really did sort of switch off everything else that was going on in my head, you know, all the other stresses in my life. And I just sort of honed in on these exercises, and I really enjoyed them. And I enjoyed perfecting them as well, which was kind of fun. You know, I have a Pilates background, and so a lot of them too were for me because I had asked that I want to be able to do them outside of a gym, right? So a lot of my exercises were body weight focused, like, you know, things I didn't need machines for. I could do it all in my living room. And so it did become this sort of almost like spiritual ritual for me. And I would even ask my family, I'd be like, I only ask for an hour and 15 minutes by myself a day. Just don't bug me. Don't interrupt my Zen, you know? And it really has become that for me. It's a great way to check in with myself spiritually as well as physically.
That's amazing. And that's exactly what we're after. And on that note around family and like you needing that time and taking that time for yourself and expressing that, how has that affected the dynamic in your household?
It was actually really sweet. My 6-year-old daughter has joined me a couple times.
Yes.
You know, look, Mom, look. And the greatest thing was when a couple of weeks ago, she said, Mom, come into the living room. I need you. And so I came in, and she had this little obstacle course set up with all of my sort of like, because I have some bands and some balls and some, you know, little weights and stuff. And she had it all set up. She goes, Mom, I'm going to teach you a class. And so she took me through these little stations, and it was so adorable. And
that's awesome.
You could see that she saw it. She could tell it was a positive thing, you know, for me to do that every day, and that it wasn't something that was a chore or that I felt I was forced to do or anything. And she, without me even saying that to her, she got that from just observing, which was pretty cool. So that was exciting. And then, you know, it's also, you know, inspired my husband too. Like, you know, he's like, what are you doing? Oh, what's that one? What's that?
Yes.
And I'm like, well, this one's really good. And,
yeah.
You know, he's like, I'm going to try that. So it's actually been great. It's been really, really great. And then I've started even teaching friends and stuff when they've been visiting. Like, I'll be like, because I got to do my session, my workout, and they'll be like, well, can I do it with you? And I'll be like, yeah, let's do it together. So my niece got on it with me once, and my best friend did it with me a couple times. And it's been really a positive experience.
Nice. Beautiful. Truly. And there's one key thing that I take out of that, and that's inviting other people to do it with you and being a part of that with you and creating that energy around you, where I know I get often a lot of questions around like, hey, like I feel people looking at me funny, or I feel guilty, or maybe I'm feeling some judgment from some other people, or maybe my partner's not as supportive. But it really just takes like inviting them into the process and explaining the process to them, right? And showing them what's going on. And if that's still not working, doing what you did, which is asking for your time and being consistent with it, to the point where they start asking you questions, and then being open to bringing them into the process, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So getting into the last couple of questions here, I just wanted to ask you, so like, what were some of the things, pick a couple, there's probably a few that you did, but pick a couple, just for the people out there that are thinking about this, like what were some of the things that you did specifically to ensure that this was a very successful experience for you specifically?
Okay. So I would say certainly one thing I did for me that would, and it goes back to what we were just talking about, was I carved out, in those 12 weeks, I carved out that time for myself. Whereas prior to the program, I probably wouldn't have. Like I would have, it was kind of like, oh, if I have time, I'll do it. But for me, it became part of my day, and it was planned ahead of time. So it was like, unless there was an emergency, that hour and a half was mine to do my program. And then after that, I was available to everybody, you know, in the family or for work or what have you. And, you know, sometimes that time had to change. If I was on set, during the day, then I'd have to do it either super early in the morning or later at night. But I made sure that I committed to myself that time. And, there were a few days where I wasn't able to do it for whatever reason. And I remember in the beginning feeling guilty for it. And then at one point, I think actually, Ben, you said, it's okay. It's all right. Just start again tomorrow. Like pick up where you left off and keep going. And it was a wonderful mindset to be in, because there was no then berating oneself or negative energy towards oneself for not getting it done that day. Whereas in prior experiences with my training or what have you, it would be like, oh, you failed. You failed today. You suck. Whereas, your attitude and your approach to it wasn't that at all. And you were very, it was all about self kindness and support, and not beating yourself up, but just saying, yay, you're okay. You couldn't do it today, but you'll do it tomorrow. And that was, I think, a huge part of the sustainability of it for me, because it didn't feel like, oh God, if I don't get this done, I'm gonna fail, or I am a failure. And being someone who's always been sort of a type A personality, like OCD, all that kind of stuff, that whole idea of failing something was kind of big for me. And this has made me realize there is no failure in this. Like, as long as you commit and do the best you can. And sometimes that means you can't work out. Like, I got sick for 3.5 weeks. I was out with the flu. It was brutal. And I remember every day being like, oh, I can't work out. And then finally, you had said, you're just like, just let your body heal. It'll be okay. And the crazy thing, the most amazing thing about that was at the end of that time when I went back, I hadn't lost any of the results that I'd gained, like everything that I had gained and been able to achieve remained, because I stayed as close to the nutrition plan as I could. And so when I started again, my body didn't really change all that much, which in the past, if I had gone nearly a month of not following a program, I would have seen the results fade. Whereas in this one I didn't, which was like, that blew my mind.
That's awesome. So key points there, I think, taken out of that are just planning and being flexible within the plan, being kind to yourself, and then doing what you can, right? Like, so you're talking about, it's like, yeah, you were sick. So yeah, we would never want people to exercise when they're sick or do any of that kind of stuff. It's just going to make it worse. Let your body heal, feed it that good, nutritious food that you're eating, and do your best with that part of it, right? So do those things that you can do, that you are in control of. And that was, I think that's something that made that a success for you. And that's, if I'm hearing that correctly, that's what I'm taking out of what you're saying. So that's fantastic. Getting into last question here. What would you tell someone that is considering this program, but isn't sure or has some fears about jumping in? Or any program, doesn't even have to be this one, starting any kind of health regime or anything like that. What would you tell them?
What I would say is, what do you have to lose? I mean, except a couple inches. No, but
nice.
But honestly, we have one life in this body. I can get into like all the other things about like past lives and reincarnation and all that kind of stuff, but we have one life. I have one life as Kristin Booth, and I have one body as Kristin Booth. And so I want to treat it like, and this, I don't want to say, this sounds cheesy, but I want to treat it like a temple. I want it to be able to give me the most it can give me in the sense, and if I am not active, if I'm not feeding it the right kinds of fuel, then it's not just going to be my body that's going to fail me or let me down, but it's also going to be my brain. That's the other thing I noticed with the nutrition plan. And because I was feeding my brain really healthy food and on a regular 2-hour schedule sort of thing, my brain didn't have time to get starved of, and so I was much sharper, like I was smarter. Gosh darn it, I was smarter.
Nice.
so I would say, like honestly, what do you have to lose? If you start a program and you're finding it difficult, I mean, the great thing about this one specifically is that there's such a support system with what you offer. So there are always ways to modify, to do things differently, to make it easier, make it more accessible, all of that kind of stuff. But when you hear people like myself who've been through a program and seen all these incredible positive results, like, I honestly have nothing negative to say about joining the program other than making that commitment and creating or etching out that time to devote to it. So if it's really like, oh, I don't have the time or whatever, those are all excuses that you make so that you're not going to achieve and be the best self that you can be, and if you start something and you don't like it, then what's, big deal, then you don't continue. But I think with this type of program, because the results were so fast and the exercises were so fun and the support system was there, I can't honestly see someone starting it and not enjoying it and not wanting to continue with it.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Kristin.
Thank you.
You're wonderful, and we appreciate your time very, very much. And just as a kind of a fun thing at the end here, it's plug time for Kristin Booth. So, Kristin, tell people where they can follow you, what your handles are, and you can follow along with, if they want to follow along with your journey, check out some of the things that you've done during the program and who you're about. Kristin shares a ton of awesome content all the time around self-empowerment and women's empowerment and getting stronger and confident, more confident. So Kristin, tell us where they can follow you.
You can follow me at Kristin T Booth. So that's KRISTINTBOOTH, and that's on Twitter and on Instagram.
Right on. Excellent. Well, thank you again so much for being here, Kristin. We really appreciate your time, and it's always lovely chatting with you. And no doubt we'll keep you going on what you're doing right now and make it sustainable. All right. Have a good day. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks a lot.
For tuning in.
Bye.